indicating that the crew has everything in place, locked away, make sure nothing nothing can escape its secure location during the re-entry portion, and the visors are down. So basically, the crew is locked and loaded, ready to come home. Taking a look at this question coming to us from Taniko. Wow, this is tough. Taniko Tikza Baloy, I apologize for not pronouncing that correctly. When the Dragon approaches Earth, how do you make sure that it does not collide with airplanes in flight? That's a great question. So part of the process to launch a spacecraft or bring it home is basically to get a license from the Federal Aviation Administration, or the FAA, and basically request that that airspace and sea space be quarantined off in a keep-out zone, basically, so that aircraft and sea vessels are not in danger during this phase. So yeah, it's a great question, because you really have to think of, because the Earth is a sphere, it's a globe, it is a three-dimensional process to re-enter the atmosphere. It's not just coming back down to Earth. It is that three-dimensional space, that airspace that has to be cleared and saved, basically. Great question.
That is a good question. And I've seen some pretty amazing pictures before of people in commercial airplanes as they are en route somewhere and can see one of the spacecrafts lift off. So I would love to have that opportunity someday.
Same. Although with how often we're launching out of Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center, it's certainly more likely now than it ever has been to catch a rocket launch from your window seat while flying into Orlando Airport. Another question coming to us, this one from Joshua Green. How do the departing astronauts make sure they don't accidentally leave any of their stuff on the International Space Station? And has anyone forgotten anything up there?
Well, there are checklists to make sure that the astronauts don't leave anything on the space station. And of course, I'm sure something has been left behind at some point, but there's always somebody going up and coming back down, so maybe one of their friends is kind enough to bring it back for them. The crew members themselves have a very limited amount of space of what they can choose to take up. I've heard it referred to as maybe like a shoebox size, so they might take up photos or jewelry or special mementos for their friends or family back home. So those things I'm sure they keep close personal track of, but then additionally there is a lot of cargo or scientific research that is loaded back onto Dragon before it comes home. So there are teams specifically dedicated to tracking the locations of items on the International Space Station and make sure that our crew members load them up before it's time to come home.
It's a good question.
Yeah, it is.
Next one coming to us from Sooner Source. My son Dex would like to know how fast the capsule is going when it hits the water. Oh, that's actually a really great question. I'll back up first. When the capsule is on station and when it departs the space station, it's going 17,500 miles per hour, or thereabout.
Yes.
It's going really, really fast. And then we do that deorbit burn, which helps to slow the vehicle down significantly. But at that point in time, it's still going, I want to say it's about 500 miles per hour as it re-enters the atmosphere. That heat shield that we talked about before is actually going to do a lot of work that gets converted into the form of heat, that plasma that builds up, and actually slows it down. So the Earth's atmosphere is actually going to help us out in slowing the vehicle down even further as it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere. And then we have those two sets of parachutes. Oh.
Dragon, SpaceX for entry briefing.
Go for Dragon.
Okay, just to give you a quick update here for timeline, we are tracking no deltas in terms of vehicle status. Only item to note is that you may get the AGPS alerts when you come back out of blackout. just wanted to give you an update that if those have the SDC at the end of it, there's no concern. It has no impact on Dragon's automated chute deployment sequence. How copy?
Okay, copy. We may get the APGS alert if it's got Sierra Delta Charlie. That's no impact.
Those are good words. Other than that, the weather's still looking good, and we're looking forward to getting you home shortly. Expected blackout time is in approximately 2 minutes or so. We'll see you on the other side at 0156 Zulu.
Copy. See you on the other side.
Wow, we got to that anticipated blackout time pretty quickly. So again, that's coming up at about 5:58 p.m. Pacific time, about 5:48 p.m. Pacific time. And so about 30 seconds from now, we will be out of communication with the astronauts and the Crew Dragon capsule during that time. The Corps mentioned an AGPS potential alert coming up after they require signal. That is the absolute global positioning system. They had a couple of pop-ups earlier, but as you heard the Corps tell the crew, those are not of any concern for them. Additionally, I got a good report for everything on Crew Dragon, looking good as we head into this entry period. There was one ground item we were monitoring that the Corps discussed with the crew earlier this evening. The WB-57 will not be available due to a technical issue. Of course, this has no impact on the operations. It isn't necessary for return. Everything continues to go very smoothly. The main purpose that we fly the WB-57 is to collect engineering imagery in addition to what we get from the cameras on the boat. So we will have those cameras on the boat, keeping their eyes out to spot our crew members as soon as they re-enter the Earth's atmosphere.
That's right. Now, after Crew Dragon Endurance has re-entered the Earth's atmosphere, a series of parachutes will deploy to slow the crew's descent. First will be the 2 drogue parachutes, followed by the 4 main chutes to guide Dragon to its first contact with Earth since it launched. Dragon will automatically deploy those parachutes when different pressure and positioning sensors on the capsule detect that they are at the right speed and altitude.
And we were just talking about these speeds. So the velocity at the drogue deploy point, we've slowed down to 350 miles per hour. Those deploy at about 18,000 feet. That is quite different from the 17,500 miles per hour we were just traveling before the deorbit burn.
Yeah.
And then the velocity at the time of main parachute deploy is about 119 miles per hour. Those will deploy at about 6,500 feet. And then that gentle water splashdown, we will be traveling at about 16 miles per hour. So again, that highest G load we think is around 3 to 5 Gs. So they should be pretty comfortable, just monitoring again as all of those parachute deploys are autonomous. Again, we are in that communications blackout period. It's just begun.
That's right. We're expecting that to last about 7 minutes due to the formation of plasma around the spacecraft. During that time, no vehicle telemetry is received by mission control or the recovery team, and no external commanding of the vehicle or voice communication is possible. As a reminder, Dragon is designed to fly itself, though. During reentry, the vehicle will be slowing down from the orbital velocity of 17,500 miles per hour. The top temperature that Dragon will experience upon that reentry, in terms of the exterior temperature, is around 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit. So as we mentioned before, we expect this blackout period to last several minutes. We are basically now in that reentry period, and we anticipate we anticipate getting that signal back in about 5 minutes from now.
This is moving pretty quickly because we are anticipating those drogue parachutes to deploy at about 5:58 p.m. Pacific time. So really just 7 minutes from now. We're looking at splashdown around 11 minutes from now. So this is a very quick timeline. A lot of things happening in rapid succession as our crew members come home. But again, we've heard good reports so far, and we are awaiting that acquisition of signal in around 4.5 minutes.
Now, one thing that if we were able to get views inside the Dragon capsule, which, like we said before, because of that plasma buildup, we are unable to get those views. But if you were watching earlier in the webcast, you did see those crew displays, those touchscreen panels that the crew was using to monitor the health of the capsule, the state of what was, the state of command for what the Dragon capsule was actually executing. As of right now, they also now have a little map that shows where they are and how much further they have to go for this reentry. They will be able to follow along with the anticipated deployment of those parachutes. One thing that the crew is trained to do is be aware of the surroundings. And of course, when those parachutes deploy, because they are slowing the capsule down, there is a small jolt that occurs during that deployment. And so, and also whenever they splash down, you'll also hear brace for splashdown or brace for impact. That is just the crew being aware and just getting ready, holding on to their seats for those moments where there's a little bit more of a noticeable feel to where they are in their seats.
Right, and I think it's very interesting after watching so many splashdowns, whenever we have main parachute deploy, they don't open to their full ballooned shape right away. They do something called reefing. So they open up quite slowly, or sometimes it appears that way. That way, that jolt is not, it's not exaggerated any more than it has to be. So they open up slowly and slow the spacecraft down again to about 16 miles per hour.
Again, we're in the anticipated loss of signal. There's 2 minutes or about somewhere between 2 and 3.5 minutes remaining. Sometimes it's hard to tell exactly when we'll be able to get that signal back, but in about 3 minutes, we will start hearing the core reach out to the crew to see if they can make that connection. Once again, the loss of signal is expected, totally normal, due to that buildup of plasma around the exterior of the capsule.
And we also have our recovery teams already on site, already on Shannon, the SpaceX recovery ship, and that is waiting off the coast of Tampa. Some of those team members arrived by helicopter. We have one of our NASA public affairs officers also on.
And there's our first view of the Crew 5 crew in Dragon Endurance re-entering the Earth's atmosphere.
So this is a view from the recovery ship itself of Crew Dragon re-entering Earth's atmosphere. Of course, we still do not have communication with them because you can see that plasma buildup as they are coming through the atmosphere, that heat shield doing all of the work to ablate that heat as it builds up around the capsule. So again, as we mentioned, you see the movements here. That's the ship camera moving and continuing to track the spacecraft during re-entry. We anticipate reacquisition of signal in just a couple of minutes from now. As Kate mentioned, it can vary on when we get that timing. But great to already have a view of our 4 astronauts, or 3 astronauts and 1 cosmonaut inside as they are headed home. There will also be a couple of sonic booms during that time frame.
Dragon, SpaceX, comm check.
So as I mentioned, the SpaceX core.
SpaceX Dragon, we have you loud and clear.
We have you the same. Good to have you back. Expect automated chute deployment.
Dragon, copy.
It's incredible to know that the voice we're hearing is coming from that gorgeous ball of light.
And all of the other little points of light you see around it, they appear to be streaking on the camera a little bit. Those are stars. Obviously, that beautiful bright light in the middle, that's Crew Dragon Endurance coming home after 157 days in space. We are standing by for drogue parachute deployment. That'll be in about 2 minutes, but we already do have acquisition of signal. That came, again, a little bit earlier than we expected. So
That's right,
it is
did.
a little hard to target sometimes.
GPS has converged. Expect nominal altitude for drogue chute deploy.
Dragon copy.
Again, that point of light in the center of your screen, that is Dragon Endurance. Another, a different view. This one infrared coming from the recovery ship. As we were mentioning, all of those team members that are ready to recover the astronauts are on the ship. They're in position. It'll take just a little bit for them to move in toward the capsule once it lands, but they all have a very important and distinct role to play, either retrieving the capsule or helping the astronauts egress, and they are all standing by.
At this point in time, Dragon Endurance is about to deploy the drogue parachutes. Those automatically deploy around the 18,000 foot mark, and the capsule's going about 350 miles per hour.
Brace for drogue window.
Dragon brace.
So just a call out there to let the crew know that they are approaching that window where the drogue parachutes will automatically deploy.
And just prior to the deployment, Dragon automatically safes the propulsion system and then deploys the parachutes to stabilize and help decelerate the spacecraft.
So like we said, we're getting ready for those drogue parachutes to deploy on Dragon. That occurs automatically when it's about 18,000 feet above the ocean surface, and the capsule is going roughly 350 miles per hour. In that view before, there was a difference in, here we can see, it's no longer quite streaking like it was just moments ago, or minutes ago, I should say. Like I said before, it looks like those drogue deploys are now, yep. We got
Visual on 2 healthy drogues.
Dragon copy.
As you can see with that infrared view, we have 2 healthy drogue parachutes on Dragon. There's a view from Dragon looking up at the drogue chutes.
Those will remain attached to the spacecraft until they help deploy the main parachutes, coming up in just a few moments. Again, these views coming to us from the recovery ship, standing by to recover our crew members once they splash down. Looks like we
It looks like we have main parachute deployment there.
Main chute descent rate nominal.
Dragon copies 1,000 meters.
A beautiful,
Copy, 1,000.
beautiful view there from that recovery vessel of Dragon Endurance with those 4 healthy main parachutes. At this point in time, the capsule's going about 119, or was going about 119 miles per hour when those were deployed, and they also deployed about 6,500 feet. So these main parachutes will help slow the vehicle down even further to about
800 meters.
Copy, 800.
so that we'll hear from the crew about how far they are above the surface of the water. So there we just heard that call out for 800 meters. The capsule is slowing down further and further. By the time that it actually splashes down, it'll only be going about 16 miles per hour.
It's fascinating to think that just minutes ago, really, they were in outer
600 meters.
space.
Copy, 600.
and are now just 600 meters above Earth. Again, we are targeting a 9:02 p.m. Eastern Time splashdown, 6:02 p.m. Pacific. So that is the next major milestone for us today, now that we have 4 healthy main parachutes all deployed. Things continue to look good aboard Dragon.
That's right. We're about a little less than a minute and a half away from the crew splashing
meters.
down.
Copy, 400 meters.
Once again, we are targeting a splashdown off the coast of Florida, near Tampa. So this is what we would consider a Gulf landing.
And those strobes of light on your screen, those are spotlights coming from the recovery vessels as they continue to track Dragon Endurance.
200 meters, crew brace for splashdown.
Copy, 200 and braced.
Commander Nicole Mann giving out that call as we are standing by for splashdown off the coast of Tampa, Florida.
There we can see the water surface. Dragon Endurance coming closer and closer. And as you just saw, splashdown of Crew 5.
157 days in space.
SpaceX Dragon splashdown. Names have been released.
Copy, Dragon. We concur with splashdown and mains released. Dragon Endurance, on behalf of SpaceX, welcome home.
As you can see on your screen, visual confirmation for splashdown.
Thank you, SpaceX. That was one heck of a ride. We're happy to be home. Looking forward to next time.
Dragon Endurance has returned home, and NASA astronauts Nicole Mann and Josh Cassada, JAXA astronaut Koichi Wakata, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Anna Kikina are back on Earth after an approximately 19-hour return journey from space. The SpaceX recovery ship and team has been waiting for Dragon's splashdown, and now, as you can see, they're making their way to that splashdown location.
Right, and these teams have been ready and been waiting about 3 nautical miles away, so it'll take them around 30 minutes to make their way to Nicole, Josh, Koichi, and Anna inside Dragon. We will be listening for Mission Control Hawthorne to give the go for the safe approach now that we have splashdown. There are several different roles. There is an approach boat that will begin inspections. They want to make sure that there aren't any hypergols, monomethyl hydrogen and nitrogen tetroxide still lingering around the spacecraft. That way it is safe for the teams to move in even closer and retrieve it.
Yeah, the crew will basically approach the capsule and they use what's basically a sniffing device, a device that can detect those levels of MMH and NTO. They are toxic to breathe, and so this is a super important step to complete.
SpaceX Dragon looks like we are in stable 1, although a little tough to...
Copy that, Dragon. We concur and are happy to report that the recovery personnel have also confirmed stable 1.
Awesome, thank you.
So just some communication there back and forth with SpaceX Core Michael Blasco and Capsule Commander Nicole Mann, just to confirm the landing position of the capsule itself. As we can see there on your screen, even better now with that spotlight.